The Republican Party is fracturing from within, and the latest casualty might be one of conservative media's most prominent figures. Erica Kirk, widow of the late political activist Charlie Kirk, now finds herself under fire from within her own party. What started as a rise to prominence has quickly turned into a political firestorm, with senior Republican officials openly criticizing and ridiculing her recent actions. The situation has escalated to a point where even longtime Trump allies are distancing themselves. Kirk's inability to address critical questions about political violence and her controversial political endorsements have raised serious doubts about her credibility. The woman who inherited one of conservative activism's most powerful platforms is now facing a reckoning that could redefine her political future, but this story goes far deeper than one person's downfall. It exposes the fault lines within the Republican establishment, the battle for the party's future direction, and uncomfortable questions about who truly controls the conservative movement's narrative. As recent polling data from early December 2024 shows, internal Republican divisions have reached historic levels, with disagreements over leadership, policy direction, and ethical standards creating unprecedented tension within the party ranks. To understand how we got here, we need to revisit one of the most revealing moments in Erica Kirk's public career. A moment that would foreshadow everything that's happening now.
This leads me to Donald Trump, the most powerful and influential person on earth, who has more responsibility than anyone else to put the flames out. Just last month, President Trump called on 6 Democratic lawmakers to be tried for sedition, which he clarified was punishable by death. He then reposted a simple message: hang them. I think that you've been making strides to bring peace to our country, and that turning point has been asking Democrats to decry the individuals who cheer for violence. I have and will continue to decry them. But any good faith effort to stop political violence must hold both parties to the same standard and expectation. So in that spirit, will you condemn the violent rhetoric of Donald Trump, the most powerful and influential person on earth?
I appreciate your question. You know my heart. Why would I ever say, yes, go murder people? This is so much deeper than just one. I understand your sentiment. I do. But this is also so much deeper than just one person. This starts at the home, okay? This starts with family. This starts with a seed that grows and grows. You can choose to have evil in your heart, or you can choose to have light. What you consume and what you absorb from the outside world will manifest itself. No, I will never agree with political violence. My husband is a victim of it. I'm a victim of it. But what I'm trying to say here is that we can blame everyone else. We have to look in the mirror. When you become a father, when you become a mother, how are you raising your kids? Are you taking responsibility, or are you giving them a device and saying, go down that rabbit hole? I'm trying to go to Pilates class. You can just sit in the corner and look at your iPad or look at your phone and go down that rabbit hole and see what you can learn from that instead of being a parent. So my call to action from that is, parents, step up. Do you want your kid to be a thought leader or an assassin? That's where we're at.
Do you think our political leaders have a responsibility to turn the temperature down right now?
Well, I think everyone has a responsibility to do that, and I'm doing my part. I'm not in control of other people.
That exchange speaks volumes. When directly confronted about condemning violent political rhetoric from the former president, rhetoric that included suggestions of executing Democratic lawmakers, Kirk couldn't bring herself to give a straightforward answer. Instead, she deflected, pivoted to parenting advice, and talked about everything except the actual question being asked. This wasn't journalism catching someone off guard. This was a calculated refusal to hold power accountable, even when that power explicitly calls for political violence. And for someone who has built a platform around being a victim of political violence herself, that hypocrisy is staggering. The reality is simple: Erica Kirk operates in a world where loyalty to Donald Trump supersedes all other principles. She won't condemn violence when it comes from the right sources. She won't challenge dangerous rhetoric when it might cost her political capital. This isn't about principles, it's about protection. Protecting access, protecting influence, protecting the lucrative ecosystem she's inherited, and that ecosystem? It's been extraordinarily profitable. Kirk has transformed personal tragedy into a political brand, raising millions of dollars in the wake of her husband's assassination. The organization she now leads, Turning Point USA, has become one of the conservative movement's most well-funded operations, with corporate backing from Silicon Valley billionaires and tech oligarchs, but even within the cutthroat world of political fundraising, there are apparently lines you don't cross. Commentator Candace Owens recently sparked controversy by pointing out exactly how much money Turning Point has raised following Charlie Kirk's death. That observation, not her conspiracy theories, not her other inflammatory statements, was what finally crossed the line in MAGA world. Why? Because in the ecosystem of modern conservative politics, you can question anything except the financial incentives. The fundraising apparatus is sacred. The grift is protected. Challenge that, and even your allies will turn on you, and Kirk herself accidentally revealed this truth in the most awkward way possible during a recent public appearance.
Despite the devastating loss of Charlie Kirk, my incredible husband at UVU, Caleb has persisted with the same gift. Grit. It has been a long day. Trust me, you're not a grifter, honey. It's all good.
A Freudian slip if there ever was one. Even Kirk's own subconscious knows what this is really about. The carefully constructed image of the grieving widow carrying on her husband's legacy momentarily cracked, revealing what critics have been saying all along: this is performance, this is calculated, this is profitable. Kirk built her public persona on conservative values that she now seemingly contradicts at every turn. Her late husband famously argued that women should stay home, focus on domestic duties, and reject corporate career ambitions. Yet here she is, running a multi-million-dollar political organization, appearing on national television, and wielding significant political influence. The contradiction is glaring. Either those principles were never genuine, or they conveniently don't apply when there's money and power involved. For someone who marketed herself as an authentic voice for traditional values, this hypocrisy hasn't gone unnoticed, especially within Republican circles. Kirk's recent actions have amplified that scrutiny. She used her platform to make an early endorsement for the 2028 presidential race, throwing her support behind Vice President JD Vance. In the world of political maneuvering, early endorsements carry weight, they signal alignment, they attract funding, and they position the endorser as a kingmaker within party politics, but not everyone is impressed. When asked about Kirk's endorsement, Senator Rand Paul didn't hold back his skepticism.
I got to ask you about a political question. We saw Erica Kirk endorse JD Vance already for 2028 for president. That was interesting, but also interesting was so did Marco Rubio, who in that article in Vanity Fair said that if JD Vance runs, he'll be the nominee and I'll be one of the first to support him. I know it's early. What do you make of this? Is JD Vance the heir apparent here?
I think there needs to be representatives in the Republican Party who still believe international trade is good, who still believe in free market capitalism, who still believe in low taxes. See, it used to separate conservatives and liberals. The conservatives thought it was a spending problem. We didn't want more revenue. We wanted less spending. But now all these pro-tariff protectionists, they love taxes. And so they tax, and then they brag about all the revenue coming in. That has never been a conservative position. So I'm going to continue to try to lead a conservative free market wing of the party, and we'll see where things lead over time.
And that's not JD Vance.
No.
Okay, Senator Rand.
That was remarkable. Rand Paul essentially said, on national television, that Erica Kirk doesn't understand what she's talking about when it comes to the future of conservatism. He didn't just dismiss her endorsement, he rejected the entire premise that JD Vance represents the party's best path forward. Paul's critique cuts deeper than personal disagreement. He's identifying a fundamental split within the Republican Party between traditional free market conservatives and the new populist, protectionist faction that Vance represents. And he's making it clear that Kirk's endorsement reveals she's aligned with the latter, a faction he believes has abandoned core conservative economic principles in favor of government intervention and corporate favoritism. It's a bold political move, essentially calling out Kirk as either uninformed or compromised. And Paul isn't alone in his skepticism about the forces propping up both Vance and Kirk's political rise. The connections are impossible to ignore. Kirk's platform has been amplified by some of the most powerful tech billionaires in America. Larry Ellison, the Oracle founder worth over $150 billion, has significant influence over media properties that have given Kirk unprecedented access. Peter Thiel, the venture capitalist who personally funded JD Vance's Senate campaign with $15 million, has deep ties to conservative political organizations. These aren't coincidental relationships. This is a coordinated effort by Silicon Valley oligarchs to reshape American politics in their favor. They want politicians who will deregulate tech industries, approve massive data center projects regardless of community impact, and prioritize corporate interests over citizen concerns. Kirk endorsing Vance isn't just about her political opinion, it's about a network of wealthy elites using her platform to push their preferred candidate. And that network is betting big on Vance because he's proven willing to serve their interests, even when those interests conflict with traditional conservative values or the well-being of average Americans. Consider what's happening right now with data centers. Tech companies want to massively expand their infrastructure across the country, often in residential areas where locals oppose these projects due to environmental concerns, noise pollution, and strain on electrical grids. Who's been pushing propaganda to soften public opposition? Fox News personalities telling viewers to buy artificial Christmas trees so real Christmas tree farms can be bulldozed and replaced with, you guessed it, data centers. This is the Republican Party that Kirk represents now. One where corporate tech interests dictate policy positions, where billionaire donors determine political endorsements, and where authentic conservative principles are discarded whenever they conflict with Silicon Valley's profit margins. Even Senator Lindsey Graham, typically one of Trump's most reliable defenders, seemed uncomfortable when asked about Kirk's endorsement.
The widow of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated in September, this week endorsed Vice President JD Vance for president in 2028. What do you make of that? Would you endorse Vice President JD Vance for president at this point?
I'm worried about tomorrow, but that's a big day for JD. I like JD Vance. That's a big get for him in terms of the future. But our fate will be determined how well we do keeping America safe and prosperous.
Graham's discomfort was palpable. He didn't want to touch that question with a 10-foot pole, and for good reason. An early endorsement could lock him into supporting Vance when Graham might have presidential ambitions of his own, or when he might want flexibility to back whoever emerges as the frontrunner. But there's something else worth noting about that interview: what wasn't asked. Kristen Welker, hosting Meet the Press, spent most of her time with Graham discussing foreign policy, Israel, Venezuela, the usual talking points. Then her final question, her one departure from international affairs, was about Erica Kirk's endorsement, not about Jeffrey Epstein. Not about the explosive scandal currently gripping Washington. Not about the fact that the Trump administration is violating a law that Trump himself signed, refusing to release FBI files related to one of the most significant criminal investigations in modern American history. This is journalistic malpractice. Graham is one of Trump's closest allies in the Senate. He voted unanimously with other senators to release the Epstein files. He's on record supporting transparency about who was involved in Epstein's criminal network. Yet when given the opportunity to ask him why that hasn't happened, why the Attorney General is breaking the law, why survivors are being denied justice, the question was about Erica Kirk's political endorsement. As of December 2024, mounting pressure from both Republican and Democratic lawmakers has intensified regarding the Epstein files. Bipartisan coalitions are forming in Congress specifically to hold the Justice Department accountable for this unprecedented obstruction. The public outcry has reached levels that political strategists say rival major policy debates, yet mainstream media continues to treat it as a secondary story. The priorities are completely backwards. But at least some Republicans are doing the actual work of holding power accountable on this issue.
On another network this morning, Democratic Senator Tim Kaine said impeachment or contempt, it is premature. Congressman Khanna, and the Deputy Attorney General said, bring it on. They don't seem to be taking this very seriously. And if you just don't have the math in the Senate, including at least now this Democratic senator not being convinced, doesn't that sort of show that you're at the limit of pressure?
No, we only need the House for inherent contempt, and we're building a bipartisan coalition, and it would fine Pam Bondi for every day that she's not releasing these documents. I'll tell you why. I've talked to the survivors, why this is such a slap in the face. One of the survivors said they released her name accidentally, but they still have not released the FBI file about the people who abused her at her request. And the problem here is that there are rich and powerful people. We all know this. There are 1,200 victims. They're rich and powerful people who either engaged in this abuse, covered it up, or were on this island. And what the American people want to know is, who are these people? And instead of holding them accountable, Pam Bondi is breaking the law. And this is the corrupt system, the Epstein class that people are sick of. So I believe we're going to get bipartisan support in holding her accountable, and a committee of Congress should determine whether these redactions are justified or not.
That's real leadership. Representative Ro Khanna and Congressman Thomas Massie have shown what principled political action looks like when you're not compromised by donor interests or party loyalty. They're building a bipartisan coalition to use inherent contempt, a rarely invoked congressional power, to fine Attorney General Pam Bondi for every day she continues violating federal law by withholding these documents. Khanna's point about the survivor whose name was released but whose abuser's identity remains redacted is particularly damning. The system is protecting the perpetrators while exposing the victims. That's not justice. That's a cover-up orchestrated by what Khanna correctly identified as the Epstein class, wealthy, connected individuals who believe they're above accountability. This is the story that should be dominating every political interview right now. This is the scandal that exposes how thoroughly corrupted our justice system has become, how political figures from both parties have been compromised, and how corporate media protects the powerful by simply refusing to ask the right questions. Instead, we get questions about Erica Kirk's endorsements. We get deflection, distraction, and a systematic refusal to confront the uncomfortable reality that our political and media establishments are failing at their most basic responsibilities. The connections between all these stories aren't coincidental. The same forces protecting Epstein's associates are the same forces backing JD Vance. The same billionaires funding Erica Kirk's platform are the same ones who benefit from a justice system that shields the wealthy from consequences. The same media figures who won't ask about Epstein files are the same ones who elevated Kirk despite her obvious contradictions and failures. This is about power, who has it, how they maintain it, and what they're willing to do to keep it. Erica Kirk is just one visible piece of a much larger machinery designed to ensure that certain questions never get asked, certain people never face justice, and certain interests always prevail. The Republican backlash against Kirk isn't about principles. It's about turf, about who gets to profit from the grift, about which billionaires get their preferred candidates elevated. But in their infighting, they've accidentally revealed how the game actually works, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The question now is whether enough Americans are paying attention, whether enough people are demanding accountability, and whether the few principled voices like Khanna and Massie can build sufficient pressure to actually break through the wall of protection surrounding the powerful. The answer to that question will determine far more than Erica Kirk's political future. It will determine whether we still have a functioning democracy or just the performance of one.